here we go, part 2 of ranking every sub-area in Super Mario Odyssey by how dangerous they are. Last time we ranked all the way up to Metro, so let's go into Snow for the dashing sub-area. Here we have a place where Mario uses rocket flowers to run across all this freezing water. I guess if you could go so fast that you could just run on water, then you should be totally fine here. Even if the rocket flowers run out and you fall into the water, there should be more right by you to get going again. That means you might feel a little pain, but it won't last for too long. So yeah, slightly painful I think is a good spot. But what about the freezing water area itself? That one is even worse because it forces you to swim in that really cold water and sometimes stay in there for far too long. After just a few seconds, you're gonna freeze into an ice block. And even if you manage to get out, I can't imagine you would feel so great. I'm putting this one in major injury. Blowing and sliding, you capture a Taifu and you solve a puzzle. Nothing physical to do, no forcing you to freeze up, and the puzzle is pretty fun. I feel like I would have a good time in here. This one is totally safe. Then there's the cold outfit room. So you put on snow gear and have to make your way through this 2D section. Thankfully, you're just walking on the ice this time and not actually swimming in the water. This place is definitely a lot safer for that reason, but there's also quite a few enemies in here. A bunch of Spinies on the ground level, and one Koopa shell you're supposed to kick and take them all out. It's mostly harmless, but again, those Spinies can hurt if you touch the top of them, so slightly painful. Spinning above the clouds, climb up another beanstalk and bounce off these flowers to spin your way through all these whirlwinds. Yeah, I think I have to go with the same logic that I used for the first area like this. Nothing dangerous about the area itself, but falling is the only way back, so I feel like some major injuries are gonna happen from that. Then there's the Snow Flower Road. Well, we activate some more flower roads and have to walk across them to get over this huge gap of poison. Yeah, I wonder where this one's gonna go. Off to Seaside now, into the Cloud Sea. We have to jump across a few platforms that are covered up by clouds. Not being able to see everything could be an issue because you might just jump in the wrong spot, but it is also just easy to clear everything out of the way so you can see. But then you also got some burbos to worry about once again. Just because of those, it can't be totally safe, right? So slightly painful. Narrow Valley. Use the Gushin and fly over all the gaps. I'm a little torn on this one, because everything here screams death to me. A huge pit to fall down, and a large wall of poison towards the end. Not to mention, you're required to fall down this hole to find the main moon. At the same time though, the Gushin is definitely one of the most powerful captures in the game, so if done right, they should easily be able to carry you over everything. Maybe it's fair to come to a somewhat middle ground between these 2 points. We could assume that if anything bad happens, the Gushin could save you from too big of an injury. So with all of that, I'll put this one right in the middle in Broken Bones. Sinking Island. You have to use the uproot to make your way up this place as the lava chases you, and it moves pretty fast. Do you really think you could climb up this whole thing fast enough to avoid it? Because if you don't, it is definitely game over. That's why this one's gotta go in death. Now in this place, you capture a Pokio and poke the bombs into the blocks. The Pokio's beak is definitely really powerful considering that can be done, but if you don't hit it just right, those could easily explode right on you. Thankfully, the explosion is kind of on the smaller side, so I don't think death is really guaranteed, but I'm still gonna put it in major injury. And now the Spinny Spiny Maze. Pretty similar to the other rotating maze from last time, but at least this time it's a little safer considering there's Spinies everywhere instead of fire-breathing plants. Definitely a lot less of a threat, but this one's still gotta go and slightly painful. On to Luncheon now for the Simmering sub-area. Wear the chef's outfit to get inside, then just capture a lava bubble and heat up some soup. Yeah, basically this place is just to swim through a bunch of lava with this guy, and as I've said before, I do feel like the lava bubble is one of the most dangerous things to capture. You're telling me you gotta take control of a ball of fire and swim across this whole thing? Yeah, no way you're surviving that. For the Magma Swamp, at least there's no captures in here. In this place, you just jump across a few platforms and collect some shards, but those platforms also go in and out of the lava, making them bigger and smaller. Having to jump across all this stuff where it's very easy to get burned, I mean, at least we're not swimming in it this time, but still feels like some major injuries could happen. But for Magma Narrow Path, now we're back to actually swimming in it, and not only do you have to swim across this whole thing, now it's much easier to fall. Wow, that's even better. For the fork flinging area, I feel like this is definitely a lot safer than most. Probably not totally safe though, because you still have to flick yourself through all of these forks to make your way up the huge mountain. There are a lot of forks to catch you if you do mess up at any point, but still pretty likely that some falls could happen, and therefore suffer some broken bones. For the Cheese Rocks area, this place actually feels pretty good. You capture a Panbro and break all the cheese to find the shards. Now there is some lava under all of this, but if you're careful, you shouldn't have to worry about that. All you really have to do is throw all of your pans right where the shards happen to be, and you can keep all the ground there pretty easily. Also, I just need some more stuff at the bottom, so I'm putting this one in totally safe. The spinning athletics time. What an area this is. So, it's a Capulus room, and you gotta jump across all these platforms that spin very quickly and try to knock you off. Do you think you're athletic enough to make it across this whole thing? I'm sure it's possible, but taking a very long fall here seems far more likely. What about gear steps? Well, there are quite a few threats in this place. Fire Bros chucking fireballs at you, and a Bite Frost that lift you up to each platform. Of course, there's a large possibility here for you to get burned, especially considering the main gimmick is to light all the torches, and then you combine that with a bite possibly getting taken out of your foot, and I definitely feel like a few major injuries could happen here. At the Volcano Cave entrance, we have this place. There is a bunch of lava here, but thankfully there is this platform here to assist you getting through it. Even if it moves very slowly, this means that anyone should be able to clear it if they're patient enough, but there is still the chance of not being able to see the lava right next to you on some parts, and also making your way across these cloud platforms. You could definitely not be paying attention to that and suffer some burns once again. There's another major injury. And then there's the lava islands, where we see our good old friend, the lava bubble. We do some swimming in here once again to get fired out of all the cannons. I don't know, it doesn't feel safe. On to Ruined for Roulette Tower, another 2D area where we solve puzzles to make platforms. This place seems safe in theory. I mean, not too many enemies here, and all you gotta do is stop these platforms in the right spot to jump across them. But if you don't do it correctly, it's a long way down. The thing is, though, it is pretty easy to figure out, and it's also not as bad as some of the other areas like it. There are still some Koopas here, though, and that threat of falling, but I'll be a little bit more generous and put it in Broken Bones. And then there's the Mummy Army. So we captured this Charge and Chuck to break down all the blocks and run through all the mummies. You know, originally, it seemed like this place wasn't the worst thing ever, but then I remembered the most dangerous thing about mummies is that they carry a lot of diseases with them. They must always be protected so none of this deathly stuff can touch the living. So having them be released like this seems like that's not gonna end well. Off into Bowser's Kingdom now, and first up we have the outfit room with the folding screen. Honestly, I don't know what to think about this one, because it is a 2D section that has some Koopas in the way and even some poison that you could fall into, but the whole thing takes place on the folding screen in this dojo room. So is anyone really in danger from this? Maybe I need some more answers before I can definitively place this, but I want to put it in totally safe. Next, the spinning tower, where we use the Pokio to climb up this whole thing. The Pokio sticks his beak into the wall, and you can use that to fling upwards. That capture does seem pretty powerful, but just like other places, if you miss, it's a pretty long fall, and that's very possible here, considering all these sections on the walls spin in opposite directions really fast and change the pattern of everything, and a fall from here might result in some broken bones. Then there's the Jizo area. You capture the statues and move them over to all these P-switches to eventually solve the puzzle. This section is really fun to figure out, so I would enjoy being in here. There's also nothing really here to hurt you, and if there were, they would not do any damage to these things. I feel totally safe in places like this, but I can't say the same for the Bowser's dashing area. Once again, the only way to get out is to take the long fall through the clouds, so it just has to go in major injury. What about Hexagon Tower? Capture a pair of bones and explore all 6 sides of this place to find the shards. Only there's a bunch of rocks that drop down on your head, and more poison for you to fall into. At one point, you even have to fly right over it to go into this hole and grab the key. Yeah, that's another place I don't want to go. And the wooden tower is basically the same thing as the other Pokio area. Capture the bird and fling on up all these rotating poles. And none of them are that high up, except for this part right at the end. And yeah, I still think some broken bones could happen with a fall from there. Now we're going to the moon. How about we just ignore the fact that there might be no oxygen for this one? So first up is the 2D galaxy. You have to very carefully jump between all of these circles that pull you in and try to make your way to the top. I'm sure getting tossed around like this would feel very uncomfortable for most people. And not only that, but if you don't make a jump correctly, there is some lava that you could fall into. Combine all of that with how high you end up at the end of this place, and I think this one is a clear major injury. And then for the giant swings, so you jump across all these platforms with low gravity, look out for these swings that are trying to knock you off, and also try to dodge these moon octoboys. I have said before that these guys look pretty intimidating, but their attack is really nothing to sweat over. The main issue here are the swings themselves. Like I said, they could just knock you off the platforms here, but they could also just come out from underneath you as you're trying to jump across them. And I feel like just because of those platforms that are right above this pit, I kind of feel like I have to put this one in major injury also. So now we're going to Dark Side, but the thing is, all of these sub-areas are just remakes of others. So all of them should be pretty similarly ranked, but maybe we could find some differences. First up, there's Dark Breakdown Road. Well, this one is exactly like the first one, except we don't have Cappy, and there's still a bunch of bullets here that can destroy the ground from under you and explode in your face. So this one is still major injury. Dark Invisible Road, also the exact same thing, and still has a bunch of poison over platforms that you cannot see. I still don't want to go in here. Dark Vanishing Road is a little different though. Before, we had a scooter that we could drive, but this time we just have to roll to the end ourselves. For one thing, that just already sounds a lot more painful. And also, the scooter made me a lot more comfortable to dodge these tanks at the end, but now that we don't have that vehicle protection, I'm not so sure I feel so safe. So I think because of that threat of getting shot at, I'm gonna move this one up to major injury. Now for the sub-areas changed to feature Yoshi. Dark Under Siege, yeah, the issue of the tanks is still there, so this one is still going in major injury. Dark Sinking Island still has a ton of lava rushing to catch up with you. I still don't think anyone's making it out of here alive. And for Dark Magma Swamp, this place still has the platforms going up and down out of the soup. And yeah, basically the same issues as the first one. This is also major injury. And to finish this off, let's head to Mushroom Kingdom. First, let's put on the Mario 64 outfit and head into the courtyard. What a peaceful place this is. 2D trees in the grass, the famous L is real sign, and just a couple of chests to open for a star. Nothing could go wrong here, right? Well, if you don't guess correctly, all of the chests turn into mummies. I mentioned how dangerous they were before, but is this place as bad? And I don't think it is, because if they appear, you can just leave the room so they go away, and then come back in to try again. Also, you could just memorize the pattern of the chests, then you don't have anything to worry about. It's interesting. I feel like I either have to rank this place at totally safe or death. No in between. And I just feel like totally safe seems a lot more fitting for this classic area. Sea of Clouds, another Yoshi area. So in this place, you capture the dinosaur, to take him around these platforms that are sunken into clouds, and find all the fruit. Somehow there's also a mare just up in the clouds here. I don't know how that works. But see, I don't think this place is as dangerous as some of the other hidden platform places, because the paths are clearly marked, and everything down here has rails on the edges. I'm not really as concerned about falling, so I guess the only threat might actually be this guy, and he moves so fast that sometimes he is hard to jump over. Maybe at worst though, if he did manage to get a bite on you, kind of a tricky one to place here, but I think a good spot is Broken Bones. And finally, we have the Mushroom 2D section, quite possibly the scariest 2D section in the game. First of all, you have to stay within the 2D border so you don't go back to 3D, so you can't just sprint through this thing, and as you slowly make your way through this journey, you have to dodge bullet bills, fuzzies around the circles, and jump between all these platforms perfectly, because if you don't, you fall out of the 2D box and take the plunge into the void. It is so easy to slip out at any point here, which honestly makes it one of the hardest and most stressful sub-areas in the game, and I can't imagine it would be any less stressful in real life. Definitely seems like a high chance of death for this room. There we go, the list has been completed. You know, this list kind of surprised me. Definitely interesting to see how many dangerous areas there are in this game. Some of them were also really hard to rank, so if you disagree with anything, please let me know. And also, what other rankings do you want to see. But for now, that is all I got. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care, and I will see you next time.